and said that would have serious consequences. Well, Lindsay Gorman is a senior fellow at the German Marshall Fund's Alliance for Securing Democracy and a former White House senior advisor. As you can see, she joins me now. Welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us. So what do you make of this visit and its timing and what it says about the relationship between Russia and China?
Thanks very much for having me. I think this is a concerning development for those of us who stand in defense of democracy worldwide. We're seeing a deepening of this rapprochement between China and Russia, and it was just only about a year ago that the two countries announced their no-limits partnership, just as Putin was beginning to invade Ukraine. And we see no signs that that aggressive act is deterring China from its strategic goal, which is to build closer ties with Russia and to cement its both nations' statuses as global powers and to reshape the international world in a way that is safer for autocracy, that is safer for countries that would invade their neighbors. So I think it's concerning for the West. It's concerning for those of us advocating for democracy to see two powerful authoritarian countries joining forces and seeming to paper over some of their differences. The statements out of the meeting have come from both countries expressing their strong support for each other and their mutual shared goals in the international arena.
Yeah, but China hasn't said it supports the war, has it? And has denied the suggestions from the US that it's planning to provide arms, ammunition to Russia. But you nevertheless see this as the development of a new axis, perhaps?
Well, China has tried to thread a very careful needle, but the more it engages with the Vladimir Putin regime, now she is planning reportedly a trip to meet with Putin himself, the more China does this, the less credibility it has in presenting itself as this peaceful broker that's going to give a fair shake to both sides of this conflict. So yes, while China has not said explicitly it supports the war, there have been reports and statements from the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, as well as the NATO Secretary General and the EU Foreign Policy Head, Josep Borrell, who are expressing concern about the potential up-ramp of China's aid to Putin, to include lethal military aid. Now, China has already provided somewhat of an economic backstop to Russia in the face of democratic-led sanctions. And I think there's a real concern from democratic nations that aid will escalate to a military nature, despite what China's strong statements are that it doesn't support Putin militarily, and that it is denying those accusations from democratic leaders. So it's a tough needle to thread, and the closer China gets to Putin, the harder it is to make that case that it's really staying neutral.
So how could the White House react to this, and what will it do to further perhaps impact on the relationship between the US and China?
Well, the U.S. and China relationship has seen certainly heightened tensions in recent days and weeks. We just had this incident with the spy balloon from China. And it is a time when the White House and many of our democratic allies and partners are rightfully skeptical of the role that China wants to play and how it's using this conflict to further its own strategic ambitions. So I think there's a healthy degree of skepticism, and a strong show of support. We'll continue to see support from this administration, as we saw from the president's surprise trip to Ukraine, which was incredibly successful and really showed the U.S. commitment to defending freedom and democracy wherever they're at risk around the world. And I think what we're seeing from China and to an extent Russia is this desire for peace at any price and peace without liberty. And that is very consistent with China's foreign policy, but something that the United States has said that freedom and democracy need to be part of world peace and of international relations and this order that was set up at the end of the Cold War and the end of World War II.